Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Conundrum Conversations. Today, I am thrilled to announce our guest, Julie Yu. Julie is currently pursuing her Juris Doctor at Duke University School of Law, and she has a very vast background that includes her internships at Kirkland and Ellis in Shanghai and the Colby College Office of General Counsel. With her experience ranging from research at the Innocence Project to her involvement in the Pioneer Academics Alumni Strategic Advisory Council, Julie brings a wealth of knowledge and experience for our discussion today. So, welcome, Julie. We are very excited to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. All right. Now, starting off, I'm going to ask you one of the questions that we ask everyone on the show. Can you tell us about your journey to Duke Law School and what motivated you to pursue a career in law to begin with?
Yeah, so that is a very complicated question because a lot of factors went into this. But believe it or not, it actually started with the COVID-19 pandemic. So before I went to Colby College, I never actually considered law school as one of my options because, as you can see, I majored in economics and creative writing, and I'm also a musician. So law is like the last thing I would ever think of. But during the pandemic, I was kind of trapped in the US. I was living on my undergrad campus because I couldn't go back to China. All the flights got canceled. There were the complicated quarantine procedures and requirements, and I just simply couldn't get out of my campus even. So I got a little bit, anxious and depressed, and I kind of needed something to just distract me from all of those gloomy thoughts. So I applied for the internship at Colby College's Office of General Counsel, and I got accepted. So that was actually the part where my interest in law was first, sparked. So that was a really therapeutic process for me, actually, because as you know, I was kind of anxious and depressed. But then my supervisors, who were all lawyers, they were able to handle this huge pandemic crisis by dissecting this huge issue into little pieces and tackle with them one by one. And I really liked how they dealt with this uncertain or unprecedented crisis with such, calmness and poise, and how their legal mindset helped them solve this issue and help them develop eventually a campus reopening plan. So I thought that was all really cool. And that was actually the first time I was able to see how the law had this power to calm people down and to restore order to this world. So that sparked my interest in law. And then, of course, the next part would be me exploring the LSAT test and realizing that the LSAT was actually pretty fun. It's nothing like GRE. Well, GRE is a great test too, but I just prefer the LSAT because I feel like it gives me a chance to actually play with logic without having to study philosophy. So essentially, I think those two were the primary factors that led me to the law.
Wow, that's very amazing. And because COVID 19 was a period that was very life changing and impactful for so many people. So, it's very motivating to see how you made something so positive out of it. Now, could you tell us how did your undergraduate studies in economics and creative writing at Colby College influence your decision to attend law school?
So yeah, on the surface, it seems that those two are completely unrelated to the law. So I know people might get confused when they hear my background, but believe it or not, these two are actually kind of really closely related to the law because take English creative writing, for example, it's as you can tell from its surface, it's a lot of writing and critical thinking. And I think those were actually really important abilities to develop at law school because a large part of law school is to think about the cases and the rules more critically to evaluate them and eventually being able to argue and to write about them. So writing is really important, and that mindset is also crucial as well. And economics is kind of similar in that you have to do like, I guess, a lot of analytical reasoning and thinking, and it's also kind of pushing you to get more in touch with the real world, with how the world is actually functioning right now and what events are out there. So that is also really similar to the law. In fact, there is a huge I guess, category named corporate transactional law that's just so related to economics. So I think these two areas are actually closely related to the law. Yeah.
Wow, it's great to know how, subjects you might think are completely unrelated to law could also be so closely related. So thank you so much for enlightening us about that. And now talking about your involvement with the Innocence Project at Duke, which was very fascinating indeed. Could you tell us what were some of the key takeaways from that experience and what were the key takeaways from working with the active investigations team?
Yeah, so as you have said, I worked at the active investigations team. The Innocence Project was actually designed to assist with the wrongful convictions clinic. So essentially, we would receive and go through all the files and questionnaires and materials that prison inmates sent to us and help with the evaluation of whether this could actually be an innocent person and if this is a case that we could help with. And if we decide that this case is actually worthy of consideration or a case that we should take, then we would recommend this to the wrongful convictions clinic, who will then take it from there and advocate for the clients. For the active investigations team, what we do is to actually read through all the questionnaires that the prison inmates send to us and also some other materials and letters that they send to us. And then we start from there and try to recreate or I guess rebuild that story of what happened during that time. And we also would try to do some extra research, for example, news or public records of this to recreate that entire scene and then make an evaluation based on that. So I guess I really learned a lot from this experience because before that I just took criminal law and all I knew was, the criminal code and all of that. But it was actually because of this experience that I began to see how mental health is so closely related to criminal law in the field of criminal law and criminal justice. Because for both of the clients that I kind of worked with, but on paper, of course, I both of them were actually having mental health issues, and that actually unfortunately led to a lot of confusion in their answers and also in their memories about what actually went on during that time when the supposed crime happened. So a lot of takeaways from that.
Perfect. And following up from the same question, how do you see this experience shaping your future legal career, especially in terms of social justice or public interest law?
Yeah, even though I'm going on the big law route, so meaning that I will eventually work for a big law firm, I think experiences like the Innocence Project will kind of help me. I guess it will motivate me to keep doing pro bono work because it's so meaningful and I can also learn and benefit so much from this experience. I think as a lawyer, it's really important to remember who you are serving and to remember to always give back to the society. And I think that's its key values.
That's great. No. And I was very impressed to see that you've had a variety of legal experiences, including your internship at Kirkland and Ellis in Shanghai. Now, how did working in an international setting broaden your perspective on the legal field?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's exactly international because I'm a Chinese national and I'm going back to China for this past summer. But it was indeed an international firm, and I worked for their capital markets team as a summer intern and was able to see how they um, pitch to their clients, how they did due diligence, and also the entire prospectus drafting process. So I was really glad and grateful to get this exposure to the IPO field. And I think being an international attorney, well, I'm not an attorney right now, but eventually, hopefully, I'll be an international attorney. I think it's a really attractive experience for me because I can get exposure to, or I can just get in touch with people from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds who speak different languages and have different insights. And I think that's a really eye-opening experiences for me. And I guess that's why I decided to do big law and to enter into the corporate field in the first place. Yeah.
Amazing. And since one of our main aims it is to compare the legal systems worldwide, so we would like to know, were there any legal differences that you have encountered that were particularly challenging or enlightening for you during your experiences as you worked both in the US and also in Shanghai?
Yeah, that's a great and also very complicated question. I'll see what I can do about that. So, there are certainly a lot of differences, at least between the US legal system and the Chinese legal system, because one of them is, I think, in the civil law system, and another is precedent based. Like it's just it works in different ways, but I think some of the core values, that is, the ideas and concepts of justice essentially are the same. They are just applied differently because of the differences in like the local culture and atmosphere. But it's really interesting in terms of how you interact with the local clients, because in the US, when I'm working in those pro bono activities, including like some other immigration law related stuff, and of course this criminal law related stuff, I feel like people are more, I guess, open or more direct because it's because of the American culture in general. But when I was in Shanghai, I feel like there are a more distinct Chinese feel, even though it's still in the international big law firm, because Chinese people and Asian people sometimes tend to be more indirect, and they have a different way of expressing things. So it's actually really interesting to see how those two cultures could actually affect how you interact with your clients.
Well, yes, it's so interesting to know how law is applied so differently across the globe. And now, moving forward as a research assistant at Duke Law, what have been some of the most interesting or challenging aspects of your research?
I'm gonna be honest with you because I am doing a part-time RA jobs. It was not like a full-time thing, so I was not able to actually work on a lot of different projects, but it was still quite interesting to see a work in progress from a professor, because normally you just see the published paper and it's just wow, like the concepts are so difficult and it's just so interesting. But then being able to see the work in progress actually gave me this chance to see how the professor approached this issue. Like, for example, even though the conclusion is the same, and maybe the evidence or the support that they're using is the same, there are still different ways of presenting the same piece, and it could give entirely different impression on the readers. So I guess it's sometimes more about how you organize the same kind of information to make it seem more logical or impressive, and also sometimes working with the more nuanced, like the actual language within this paper to make it, I guess, sound more persuasive or more powerful. So it's really interesting to be able to see the behind the scenes of all of this.
Great. And do you have any tips for students who are interested in pursuing research positions?
Like specifically research positions in law.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm in a position to give advice because I'm also quite new to this part, but I would say be proactive. If you know for sure that you want to pursue a career in academia, for example, or if you just want to do research, then make sure that you let your professors know early on if you have that interest, and if you know that this professor is someone I want to work with. I don't know about other countries, but in the US, as I said, people tend to be more direct. So you can feel free to just let them know that you have this interest and ask them to keep you in mind once they have an opportunity opening up. Yeah, just be direct and let people know.
I think that's great advice. Now, we know the Deferred Action Clinic at Duke offers students a chance to work on real cases. So, what were some of the most rewarding or challenging cases that you encountered during your time there?
Yeah, so as a 1L, the work that I was actually involved in was a 1 day clinic where we kind of served as the volunteers to help some of the migrant workers to fill out petitions for deferred action. And this deferred action is probably like unknown concept to many of the audience, so I'll just explain it briefly. So basically, I think it's a way for migrant workers who are working under an abusive employer to help them get out of that job and still be able to work in the US. So it's like a temporary visa that the workers can apply once they explain their current situation and also provide them with some of the personal information. So I think we held a one-day clinic on a church in October last year, and we were able to help file, like, I think around 15 petitions at that time. I have to go back and double check, but I think around 10 to 15 petitions. And it was actually a really rewarding experience for me because first of all, it's immigration law, and I know that immigration law has this reputation for just being really frustrating, have a really slow process and all of that. But it's one thing to hear that it's frustrating, and then and another thing to actually experience it. Like the paperwork, it's just huge, and frequently because these people who are applying for these deferred actions tend to be people who are at a disadvantage, like they have limited access to money or to the internet, and they still have to fill out this mountains of paperwork to show like where they had been before, where they had worked, like all of those detailed information. So I guess it gave me a real like experience of how frustrating this field can actually be. So I guess it gave me motivation to try to contribute to it whenever I can because of how frustrating it is.
So you mentioned briefly how you saw immigration law before this experience and after this experience, right? So could you tell us, in more detail, how has this influenced your views on immigration law and policy?
Um, so I guess the key takeaway for me actually was that it's way more frustrating than I thought, and there's still a lot of work to be done there and a lot of people in need of help. But I guess I personally also need to take more courses and do more pro bono work to be able to comment more deeply on that subject, unfortunately. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Lastly, do you have any advice for aspiring legal professionals, especially those who are still in high school or in their undergraduate and are looking to pursue a career in law?
Yeah, so I guess there are many things I can say, but I'll just pick two. So the first one would be to think about networking early. I know that a lot of people are like me who are introverts and just have a really limited amount of social battery. Like I just can't keep on partying forever. I can't keep on talking forever. It's entirely fine. Think about networking as a skill to learn. It's not like changing your personality or anything. It's just a skill to learn, and it can actually help you in a lot of ways. So I would encourage people, especially introverts, to think about building relationships, about building connections. And I think Dua, you're doing a great job in that already. So congratulations. But that's one tip I would offer. Another tip I would offer is that maybe you're still because you're still in not in law school, you're still in high school, so law school might seem far away for you. But I think law school is at least law school in the US can actually consume you because of how daunting like the tasks can be. Like it's just a really busy time, and sometimes you forget that you are a human, that you are not just a law student, that you are not just an attorney. So I think it's really important to remember that you are still yourself and try to have something that's not law related that's going on. Like if you are a writer, an artist, a musician, or you're a blog writer or anything, just try to keep that identity and remember that you are still that person, and try to take time off because the law is not everything. And that's important not just because it makes you feel that you're actually living. It's also important because I think the law is not in a vacuum. The law is always based on something. It's true, it's based on maybe some philosophical concepts of justice, but eventually it's aiming to serve somebody in some industry, to tackle with a problem that happened in some other industry. So it's actually important and useful to have some exposure and knowledge about a certain other field before you start thinking about the law. So more reasons for you to be who you are and to try to take breaks whenever possible. Those are my 2 tips.
That is amazing and invaluable advice, and I know many people would feel motivated by it. And also, thank you so much, Julie, for sharing your incredible journey with us. Your experiences, they provide valuable lessons for aspiring legal professionals and students. So thank you once again for being here with us, and we wish you best of luck with your studies at Duke and your future career. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in more for more insightful conversations. Until next time.